Hello and welcome back to Niche Arcade. This is going to be my final thoughts on Cassette Beasts. This was the longest playthrough we've done yet on the channel, so that's pretty cool. I'm definitely excited about that, to actually wrap up that project. Genuinely still kind of deciding what I'm going to do next. Not really sure yet, but have a couple ideas out there. We'll see. Anyway, there's so much to say and unpack about this game. I'll try to keep this short. Trying to keep these under about 10 minutes long here. Again, this is just a snapshot of what I thought was good about the game, what you can kind of expect if you are thinking about getting into this. So I guess the first thing I would say, if you're expecting to go into this like a low commitment level, it's not quite exactly like the shortest game ever. You can still get through it in a reasonable time frame, but it is a bit more of a commitment than I was expecting. Took us about 20 hours to finish the game, 21 hours ish, somewhere between that margin. So don't be going into this and expecting like a really super short, like 5-8 hour experience or anything like that. It's certainly beefier than that. So that'd be number one. Just if you invest the time and money into trying this game out. In terms of how I experienced it personally, it's on Xbox Game Pass right now, so that's how I was able to play it. I would say if that's an option for you. I played on the PC. I will say too, I was watching a friend play through the Switch version of the game, and he has had a lot of crashes while playing the game on the Switch version specifically. So I don't know if that's unique to him, or if that's just the port of the game, or why there's been a lot of crashes for him. Something I thought I would give a heads up on. And then the other thing too, if you do play this game on PC, I did run into some very small performance issues. There's some stuttering out in the open world. I didn't have any crashes or anything like that. I didn't really have any glitches as far as I could tell. Trying to remember. I thought there was maybe one thing that happened in the playthrough where I had to maybe reset the game or something. I can't remember now, but nothing game breaking. The bugs and glitches are very minimal if you run into them at all. But yeah, just be prepared. There's a bit of stuttering and stuff out in the open world, maybe a little bit of frame drops or something like that. So just be aware of that going into it. That's kind of like the disclaimer I'll give if you are thinking about spending the $20 or whatever on buying the game or doing it on Xbox Game Pass. But nothing at all that ruined the experience for me. So that being said, that out of the way, the game itself, I mean, there's so much to unpack here. I guess first and foremost, we'll just talk about the story of the game is very interesting. I'm going to do my best not to compare this game to the other creature collector that all of us know very well. It's going to be hard not to bring it up here, but I'll do my best not to make any comparisons. I really want to try to judge this game on its own merits and its own basis. So a little bit of a challenge, because I know the automatic reaction is going to be, well, how does it compare to that other creature collector that we've all been playing for the last 20 plus years? Generally, if you want to know that, I would say this compares very favorably to that other creature collector. This game does so many unique and interesting things through its gameplay systems. It really is kind of a reinvigoration of that classic monster collector in a really, really big way. I'm getting off topic here though. So story-wise, yes. So story completely different than what you would normally expect. Very weird story. You kind of start off, you're going through this what looks like a wormhole or something like that. There's definitely some kind of manipulation of time and different realities and multiple universes going on here. It's not really completely explained, but there's some interesting stuff going on. Your character lands on this island that is just kind of a Just an open world to explore, almost a la Links to the Past kind of open world. It's just, you can kind of go out there. That's one thing I think this game does really well, is you can pretty much kind of go wherever you want right from the beginning of the game. There is a slight bit of like Metroidvania gating where you have to catch certain beasts to get an ability to allow you to proceed past certain areas or unlock certain puzzles and stuff. But you could really engage with those mechanics at any time as long as you can catch the beast for it. There is some level scaling as you go through, right? So the further and further you go into the map, the higher levels that you're going to run into of monsters and things like that. So, you can't just go anywhere you want technically until your appropriate level, but you can, if you wanted to, you could just grind and level up and just explore the island if you wanted to. There's a lot of secrets and stuff to find and treasures, and just it gives you a lot of flexibility and options in terms of how you actually want to approach exploring the world itself, which is really cool. I kind of, just because I wanted to stay on track for the playthrough, I kind of followed the main story. There is companions that you get in this game, which is very cool. So you're always fighting with two different beasts at the same time, and you have a companion with you. Every single companion is really well fleshed out. They have their own backstories, personalities, characterizations. They'll have their own separate quest line that you have to follow if you actually want to go through the process of interacting with all the content in the game. This is one thing I'm not 100% sure of. I think if you knew how to get to the end of the game, you could probably bypass some of the things in the game. I believe you just need to finish or beat 8 of what are called the Archangels in the game, which are kind of the big bosses. So I think if you knew where the what the trick was to beating the game, because you basically have to kind of figure that out through a series of beating bosses and getting more clues and information, you probably could skip through some stuff and get that done. So I don't know. I'm not sure about that 100%, but I feel like you could probably skip out on maybe some stuff if you did like a second playthrough and you knew how to get to the end of the game, which I'm totally in favor of. That's very cool. Don't think there's anything wrong with that. Because this game's probably actually a good game for like speedrunners, because there's a lot of different ways that you can approach it and stuff. So I'd be curious if there's ever going to be like a speedrunning initiative behind this or anything. But so yeah, that's basically. I don't want to spoil anything about the story or what happens in it. But basically, yeah, you're in another dimension. There's these beasts running around everywhere, and you have to figure out how to find your way home. And it's good. It's totally different. The characters are very unique, and they have a lot of interesting things to say. And I think you'll have a fun time just walking around, talking to NPCs, and building up relationships with your companions. I'd say that's kind of the primary focus of the story. Yes, there's a larger narrative going on behind it. Godlike creatures and all this kind of stuff, weird things going on. But really, I'd say it's actually more about just exploring and building those relationships with the people that you meet along the way, which is cool. In terms of the gameplay, now this is where this game is really going to probably surprise you a bit. When I went into it, I was like, okay, water beats fire, fire beats grass, grass beats water kind of thing. That kind of is here a little bit, but not nearly in the same way that we maybe have been accustomed to it in the past. It's much more likely that instead of doing additional damage per se, it does actually more like status effects. So status effects are absolutely massive in this game. If you watch my playthrough, I cheesed my way through several big battles just using status effects. I thought that was very cool. It leads to trying out some interesting characters that maybe I wouldn't have been as inclined to try out. This game isn't just about what's my highest attack power, what's my highest defense. The actual like passive abilities, status effect abilities actually are meaningful in this game, and I'd say even more so than just like raw attack power. So that's one big difference here. Some things I would do, like there was one ability that it always guarantees to poison an enemy for 3 rounds. Can't remember the name of all the abilities, but there's multiple poison effects and stuff. But basically, you'll poison the enemy for 3 attacks. And that's the other nice thing, is I didn't really feel compelled to actually use any items to remove status debuffs too much. You can buy those. There's a couple different ones you can buy. But for me personally, I just kind of ate it for the most part. There's ways to kind of work around it. You can drop a status effect like Leech, for example, which is a grass type that will slowly drain life from an enemy. And that's the other thing too. You don't like, yes, okay, you could use the grass on a water type and it will do like additional debuffs to it, like defensive debuffs and things like that. But you could use Leech on any enemy and it will basically have the same impact as if you were to use it on like a water type and that kind of thing. Another cool example of this would be if you're using a fire type on a wind type, it actually creates an updraft because the fire is hitting the wind, and it creates an updraft that basically makes like a defensive wall for the air type. So that's that's pretty unique and different. You definitely I have never seen anything quite like that in that way, where there's like actual like almost like grounded realistic effects between different elements and how they interact with each other, and they actually lead to more like passive status effects. So it really isn't a system that is extremely varied. I was still discovering new interactions between the different elements and different types of beasts by the end of the game. I didn't have it all figured out. So it's just something you got to experiment with. I still don't have my mind wrapped around all of it even after finishing the game. But I was able to uncover some pretty cool strategies and things to kind of, make certain battles and stuff for myself a little bit easier. So I'm just gonna change up the music here a little bit. This song's a little bit scary, so we're gonna switch it up to something a little more cool. So the music here also is all from the game that we're listening to here. Game had pretty good music. Couldn't tell you who the composer was or anything like that, but it actually, one thing that really threw me off about the game is all the music has lyrics and that kind of thing in it. It's very strange. It's kind of like will throw you off a bit initially, but it's pretty cool. It's very different and unique. Really like the music. There is definitely like an 80s vibe to the whole game. It's called Cassette Beasts after all. Cassettes being popularized probably in the 80s more so than any time period in human history. So that's a big part of it. The music has an 80s vibe to it at times, especially like some of the more hard rock songs and things like that. In fact, let's listen to that right now. I'll show you exactly what I'm saying here. If we find this one here. So yeah, this is a very good example. This is kind of the boss battle music here. You can hear it's got that kind of that sci-fi synthesizer focus type of rock music. Very fun, very cool. I'm totally into it. Made those boss battles and those boss encounters really fun and enjoyable. So if you're into that kind of thing, I think that'll grab your attention right away. Just the overall vibes of the game itself are pretty different and unique. What else is there to say about it? That's honestly, that's kind of the wrap up of it. Like I said, I don't want to spoil a lot of it because I think this is a game that you really just best to kind of go into this game blind, explore, figure stuff out for yourself. The item system is very easy to understand. It's not super complex, which is nice. The only issue I ran into, if you watch the playthrough, I did get stuck at one point because I wasn't properly exploring the main village area, and I had totally missed this NPC interaction that I needed to do to kind of proceed through this one area. So that'd be one hint I would give you if you do want to check this game out for yourself. Very important to explore the main village, talk to the NPCs. They'll have a little question mark above their head. they'll give you like clues and hints as to what your next objectives are, and it tells you that right at the beginning of the game. I just failed to recognize that as being as important as it was, and ended up kind of getting lost, having to look up a guide for that. That was the only time I had to look up anything about the game. So just be aware of that. Talk to people in around the town, engage with those NPC interactions, and you should be fine and be able to get through most of the game that way. So yeah, that's basically my general thoughts about it. I thought this game was really good, very innovative, very fun. The music is great. The gameplay is super cool and different than what you might expect. And I think this is one of those games where it's like, this is such a great template for a sequel. I think this game absolutely should get a sequel. I would love a Cassette Beasts 2. I think this could be done again, but even better, especially if they could refine some of like the small performance issues in the game and stuff like that. And the artwork and like just the aesthetic of the game is great too. Very old school, kind of like Game Boy style vibes, pixelated, 8-bit style, but with a 3D modeling, which is very nice. So the game, yeah, it's a very stylistic game that way from the art style perspective as well. So yeah, overall, very good game. Really thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. Highly recommend it if you're into monster collecting games. And I think it's well worth that 20 hours and that $20 that you might be thinking about spending on the game. So I give this one a big thumbs up. No major complaints. But if you have any questions or any thoughts or anything you want to add, please drop it in the comments. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it. Did you like this game? Did you not like it? If so, why? Why not? And let me know if there's any other games that you want me to do in the future. I'm very open to that. Kind of just like I said, deciding what we're going to do next here. And we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, this is kind of my final thoughts on it. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Give a like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. And we will see you soon.